Good morning. Good morning. I'm excited. Guys, look, today is July 4th, another holiday weekend. A lot of people right now are sleeping, tucked in bed. But where are you at? Where's your mental state at? Again, think big, dream big, be big. I'm excited because you know what? It is time. The time is now for everything that's about to happen in your life. It's about to happen. I've been thinking lately about when we get in a moment where we start to procrastinate or feel overwhelmed, what do we do? That's when you've got to go hard. That's when you've got to sit back and analyze where you are and what are you doing and how you're looking at how you're going to get to the next step. Right now, I know a lot of people are sitting here saying it's a holiday, it's time to relax and lay back. It's time to go harder. It's hard to take the time to replenish your mind, but start thinking about what are you going to do next and how are you going to overcome all these hurdles that are in your life. Because things are always going to be, they're always going to be problems. But the thing about a problem is there's always opportunity. That a problem is only an opportunity to find a unique solution. I want you to be solution driven today. Wake up with a winning mindset. Start your day thinking about how do I continue to push forward. Now I'm not saying don't have a great day of relaxation and getting out and doing great things today, but let your mind continue to churn on all the things that you are pushing forward on. There's no rest for the weak and the weary. And I'm gonna tell you, there's some people that were partying and there's some people out there be creating today. Be a part of that challenge and that drive that's going to change someone's life today. Take time to replenish yourself if you need it. Take time to enjoy family and loved ones. I'm always telling you, health is wealth. But the key thing I'm going to tell you today is get your mind right because it's time. And it's time to start doing something great. Because I'm excited about where I am, but I'm more excited about where we're going. And we're about to do some great things. Guys, I'm telling you, if you haven't heard, I got a lot of announcements coming up this month. There's a lot of things that are happening, and I want you to be a part of it. Again, chime in, get your mind right. Let's focus on where we're going, and let's focus on not procrastinating and delaying on what God has already promised us. Let's move forward, and let's move forward with a mindset of winning. Again, the key word is mindset. Think big, dream big, be big. I want to see you at the top because I am ready to start making and building and changing lives. I hope you are. Again, the days of vacation for some, but I'm always on the grind. Let's go get it. Stand by. Good morning, good morning, good morning. As always, pushing forward, doing something great. I'm ready for an exciting day. Again, it's a vacation, it's a holiday for some. But for me, I'm always out here trying to put that grind in to get to that next level, change some lives. Man, it has been an amazing week for me. And I'm going to tell you, we done some cool things just to catch you up to speed. Again, fireside chats and opportunities to fire off those questions that you want to know about, you want to learn about. If you're looking to get into real estate, looking to get into any type of business, looking to push your mind and get to the next level, that's what this is all about. It's an opportunity to have a group, a circle, a movement where you can ask those hard questions and get those questions answered. Again, I told you, it's 6 a.m. in the morning, and that's when I rock the hardest because I wake up with a mindset of winning. And in the morning, I'm always ready to kind of push forward and grab and do things that are different. And I hope that you are. Again, it's about changing lives. Think big, dream big, be big. Last week we had a great session, man. We talked about landlording and some cool things, and we had a lot of questions come in, and I got some questions I want to pose today, which I think is amazing. But I want to start up again with a moment of gratitude and being thankful, thankful for what we have. I'm so excited because again, I'm blessed, and I know you're blessed, and I just want to kind of take that time to reflect that your life is bigger than things you have and things you have accomplished. It's about being thankful for the things that you already have. And one of those things is just waking up this morning and being able to face another day. So, with that said, I want to start off by just saying, how do you feel? I see one of my long day one friends online with me this morning. So, I'm going to just ask her right quick. Lisa, are you out there?
I'm here.
Good morning, Lisa. How are you?
Good morning. I'm blessed and here.
That's it, girl. Look, I know it's 6 a.m. in the morning. This is when I'm up, and I'm excited because I'm up at like 5 in the morning because I'm doing my motivation, I'm doing my meditation, getting my head right. So again, this is a fireside chat. Lisa, I know you've been around me from day one. You see me when I first got started back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
tell everybody, like, your story is just so amazing to me. Just your, persistence, just determination. Just the fact that you jumped out there is so many times that you left a situation that a lot of people would perceive as safe, going from corporate America, going from high in the ranks in corporate America to determining, you always saw every day as a new opportunity. And so, I'm just always celebrating, always cheering, always there as well.
that's amazing. So Lisa, I know. Tell me a little about what you do, Lisa, and how do you feel today, looking at where we are as a economy and entrepreneurship and mindset and real estate, whatever you want to tell me. How do you feel and what do you currently do?
So, if I'm being really honest, I'm kicking myself like every day recently that I didn't get into this business a long time ago, right? Just because of what we've seen as far as the market, as far as the development of Charlotte, and how, I mean, they're going to be charging almost $3,000 for a 3 bedroom rent on Sugar Creek Road. Like,
Wow,
if that ain't stupid, I don't know what is. Um, so I just see it, and I see it on the back end of your vision that you saw a long time ago. So, if I'm being honest, that's one of the things. But the other thing is, there's always an opportunity to move forward. Could either be here and then 10 years from now saying, dang, I should have done 10 years ago, So there's always an opportunity to fix it and to be better and to think big, dream big, and be big, right?
wow, that's it.
That doesn't expire. Right now, I'm in corporate America. I'm a corporate trainer, a senior trainer um, for a Medicare company. And then I also am a playwright. And so I write plays, gospel plays, and I actually have a project that I was trying to put on this year, but because two major theaters closed down, everything is booked out for the rest of the year. So I'm looking at dates in 2024 or looking at doing it at a high school. So there's a lot of stuff on the horizon. It's being diligent.
Wow, this you got a lot going on. Yeah, I tell you, you're right. I think vision and visionary are two things I tell people. You can have a vision, but then being a visionary, being able to execute on that vision. And you're right, Charlotte is changing. We're in Charlotte, North Carolina, but again, I've got people right that chime in on our fireside chats from around the world, Africa specifically. Hats off to my Kenya team out there. I'm so excited. I can't wait to next year. We're coming. Um, but I'll tell you, when when I first started, it was just like now. You start to look around, you see a lot of things happening because at the time rents weren't that high. The housing market was going through a transition. But again, being a visionary, I started to look at what the landscape looked like, and I'm always focused on how do I prepare myself for the future that's yet to come. How do I have the faith to endure and set things in place today that will create the emotions that I want to live in tomorrow? And that's what we should be doing now. I know people are saying, well, housing prices are rising. I'm seeing rents go up. But the question is,
Mhm.
what will you do to play a role in ensuring that you're creating a blessing, but also creating an opportunity, whereas you can play in that game in that space. And again, it's not about where you start; it's about where you finish. Let that sink in.
Mhm.
It's not about where you start; it's where do you finish. But I promise you this: if you never get started, you're never going to finish. And that's
Mhm.
one thing you can always look back on. But today you have an opportunity to again join movements and circles that will help drive you forward. Because the landscape is changing. But the question is, are you changing along with it? Are you watching it change? And I think that's the biggest thing. So this, I'm so excited and hats off again for the journey and seeing the journey, but at the same time being a part. And there's no, you can't change the past, but what you can do today is focus on the future. And you've done a lot of things when it comes to being in the circle of changing lives. Not only from the poetry scene. Look, she used to do poetry back in the day, so I think she to now writing plays and following your passion. Remember, I tell people, I don't teach you real estate. That's not what I do. I teach you about building wealth. And building wealth says real estate is a component of that. Because
Right.
there's so many different avenues that I tell people you can be successful. And it's not just about real estate. So look, whatever you do in life, follow your dream and follow your passion. At least I know you're doing that. But we're gonna chime in and get some more out there. I see Tina online. Good morning, Tina. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing great this morning. How are you doing this morning? How you feeling?
I feel amazing. I'm up, I'm alive, I feel blessed.
That's what I'm talking about. Look, so Tina, tell me, what do you do, and tell me what do you do, and what excites you right now with where we are on this economy we're growing? Because I got a question that came in that I'm gonna post in a few seconds, and I think it's gonna set some people back a few minutes. So, what do you tell me a little bit about what you do, and tell me um, how do you feel about where you are in the state of economy right now?
Well, I'm a cyber investigator for one of the major banks in the country. Um, how everything is going, the interest rates are really high. I just purchased a home off of Beggetsford Road, and it's very expensive, but I'm excited about it. And it's a fixer upper, and just it's teaching me how to be strategic how I'm planning and budgeting. So that's where I'm at with the economy.
Wow. So you just bought a home, which is exciting. Again, based on what I'm always telling people, again, one of the key things I talk about a lot is location and understanding your purpose. Now, I'm doing a training coming up about is the one-on-one basis of real estate. How do you find that first home? How do you go about that model? And how do you push forward? And location's everything. So knowing where to look is important, and knowing when to look is just as important. So Basement Road is an area in Charlotte, I think, that was marginalized for many years. You've seen some of the developments that I'm doing there. There are a lot of people moving into the area. But again, the opportunity to change is on everyone that's around. I always tell people that area is strong because people who live, work, and invest there. So now I'm happy to see that you're actually going to be living in that corridor, but also doing something great as far as being a part of a movement in an area of Charlotte that I think is I think is one of the greatest places in Charlotte to live at this point, and it's getting there. But again, the thing about it is that we've got to drive that change and be a part of the narrative. One thing I want to say again, someone asked me, "What is a narrative?" That's one of the questions that came in. How do you build a narrative when it comes to entrepreneurship and what you do? And I said it's very simple. When you look at narrative, the key thing I tell people is either you're going to create a narrative that you want to live by, or you're going to live by someone else's narrative. And I believe that when I say that, I mean, when you look at a community and you see a community that's going through change or that is um, not what you want to see it or doesn't have all the aspects you want to, the thing I tell people is you have to create the narrative. Why not have you go, why won't you go into that community that they say is a bad community and figure out a way to change that community versus talking about it or saying it's a bad community? And I think that's what plagues a lot of communities that we see today that we consider to be marginalized or low income or communities that most people don't want to be in, because I think the first thing says is it's not asking what someone else is going to do. It's what are you going to do? How can you impact that community? How can you go out and say, you know what? If they say Bayswater Road is a bad community or an area that needs change or going through challenges, why not be that change agent? Why not say, you know what can I go over and start a business? Do I have an idea to write a play and I can stage it in baseball role? Or if I decided I want to start my career in real estate, and why not go buy a property on baseball road and get entrenched there? Or if, hey, look, you know what, baseball is a great area. Why not go and move there? And let's talk about the positive things. Because I'm gonna ask you a serious question. What if people said negative about you that you've had to change in your life? Are they always seeing your negative aspects? Or are they always seeing your positive aspects? People see how great Michael Jordan was, but do you know how many times he missed those shots and he didn't make a shot? But people don't talk about the ones he missed. They talk about the ones that he hit. And that's the one thing I want you to focus on today. I want you to focus on how many communities can you change by putting your impact and driving your impact in those communities. It's amazing. So I think, Tina, that's a great way to look at it, and that's a winning. So when you look at what you're about to go, how do you feel about moving to Basement Road, and has it been a great a great experience for you so far?
I'm excited. Um, one of the reasons why I had purchased in Batesford Road is because it is a black community, and I always wanted to raise my future kids in a black community. Currently, I live in Huntersville, and I knew I didn't want to raise my kids in that environment. There's a lot of black excellence here in Charlotte, so definitely want to raise my kids in that type of environment. So I'm excited. I'm gonna try to excited to change the neighborhood and how everyone looks at the neighborhood.
Awesome. So let me ask you a question. So one of the questions I got last week, I'll actually throw it to you. Um, when buying the question was basically around buying your first home, and the how do I overcome the fear of buying my first home when the housing prices are so high? Tell me, how do you feel about that statement? I want to post that too.
Well, I remember you saying that if you have a out plan, that an interest rate shouldn't bother you at all because as long as you can have a plan to get out, you can invest in it. You can, um, most thing invest in it. The interest rate shouldn't bother you. So, I am in a higher interest rate, so it doesn't bother me because my first home is my investment home. It's not my forever home.
And so let's talk. Let me break that down because I want people to understand that part. So we talk about interest rates, and you talk about the interest rates are rising. That affects your interest rate affects your mortgage payment. Why? Because your basic your whatever you when you purchase a home, and just say if it's 200,000, and you have an interest rate of 3%, your mortgage principal interest will be a little bit lower. But the key thing is your interest rate, which is going to drive that value based on your lending. So what happens is that now we're seeing prices go from 3%, which were COVID rates fell in COVID, and now those prices, your interest rates are sitting at about 6%, which make that mortgage that you would have paying around 1,100 now principal interest now at almost around 16 to 1,700. That's a large jump for some people. But let me explain to you something too, and what I want you to look at. Back in 2000, 2008, those same housing prices that were now 200,000 back then were around 56 to 57,000. So you had a lower price point of entry when you bought the house, but the interest rates back then were almost 7%, 7 to 8 to 9%. But you had a lower price point, meaning that you bought the house at 48 something thousand, 48 something thousand, let's just say 50,000 to be easy numbers, 50,000, and you paid a higher interest rate. So today, that same house is being resold at 250. So there's an equity gap that happened. Now, what I want you to think about is that today, if you bought the house for 255 and you think that that price is high, and inflation is still rising, so we're going to see costs continue to go up. Is it a bad idea now to still not buy? No, this is the time to buy, because if the interest rates fall again, then you take an opportunity to refinance where you are, and now you've gotten your payments lower, but it's still an opportunity for an investment because now you're in the game. Two things have happened, and I'm gonna tell you, Tia, two things have happened now that you bought. Even though you may be feeling the experience of having to buy in a higher market, Your house that you're buying now has a greater opportunity because of the location that you're buying in to increase in value, and you want the house to increase in value, even though your interest rate is up. And do you have a? I'll ask a quick question because it's a lot of things that play into it. Do you have a fixed rate or a variable rate, like an ARM? I just want to ask that question before I finish.
That's a good question.
I
So
think
fixed is like what's fixed?
okay, so that's great. I explained it too. Fixed is when you have your mortgage is locked, so you're not based on your rate doesn't fluctuate with prime, so it's
Yeah,
actually
it's fixed then.
so you can have a mortgage that's fixed for 30 years, not think that they extending it out. So your mortgage rate is locked. So if you have a say a 5.75 or 6.2% interest rate, that is locked for the life of your loan until you refinance. Now,
Yes.
an adjustable rate says that at a certain period of time, at a certain time, if well as the rates climb, your interest rate can adjust. You can adjust a certain amount over time. So if the rates go up, your mortgage can go up because your interest rate goes up. I will tell people, be clear, listen to me closely. If you are getting a mortgage on a home, I would always advise you, unless you have a clear exit strategy, you're not going to keep the property long. You have a plan. Again, I would tell people know the rules when you're going to play the game. If you're going to get adjustable rate mortgage, make sure that you have a plan of not being at home for a long period of time, or you understand exactly what you're doing, because you do not want to get into the game of housing and things change around you that you can't control. As the rates change, now your mortgage goes up another $200 or $300. In some people's mind and some people's world, that may change their entire life. There's a study that shows that most people have less than $1,000 in savings. So when you start talking about some drastic changes in the market affecting something that's been stable like housing for you, now you've got a challenge that you've got to face, and that's also on the investment side as well, because it's two sides of the coin. Just now I was talking more about the home ownership piece, but this also affects the investor side as well. And you don't want to have a portfolio of assets that now you're paying an adjustable rate mortgage on, because now that mortgage fluctuates based on the market, and now you got to go charge more rent. You got to change some dynamics, and it could cause a downfall. So I would tell you, as much as you can, as much as you can, get in the game early. And I'm gonna ask a crazy question, Tina. What if you could have bought that same house 5 years ago at say 85 to $90,000? Would you have done it?
Um, no, only the reason why because 5 years ago I didn't have the mindset of even buying. So
Wow. You see that? She said mindset and timing. We talk about that all the time. It's never the wrong time. But now that you have the mindset, you're playing a little bit higher price point. But guess what? Now you're in the game. That's all that matters. You're in the game. Now, what do you do about it? Another thing she said that was key is that this is my first house, but I'm looking at it as an investment. And why is that?
because that's how you when you buy your first house is always an investment home. It's never your forever home. And
Wow.
you're even though um you can with that mind I mean also remember that you can always borrow against the equity to buy the next home.
Wow. Hey, Lisa. Look, she's over here dropping total gems for anybody that's watching as a first time home buyer, and killing it, because she's talking about now borrowing against equity. Look, you can have me teaching the whole class online this morning, but
She's
and I'm fine.
doing it. Congratulations, Tia, too.
That's
Thank you so much. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
because again, she's talking about not only taking her first home and looking at it the right way. And I'm gonna say this too, because when I bought my first home, I remember it so clearly. I wanted a house, and that's all I wanted. All I could think was buying that house. And when I bought the first house, it wasn't in the mindset of an investment until someone tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Look, let me show you. Let me drop some game on you and help you really understand that this isn't your forever home." And you just said that. And because why? Because life changes, family size changes, and I realized that that house became a tool, and you utilize that tool to build wealth and become an asset. So I knew that by living in this house for a certain period of time, um, it gave me opportunity to get equity. And we just talked about what is equity. I know everyone says, wow, everyone knows what equity is. Well, everybody doesn't know what equity is. And I meet a lot of people who ask the question, what is equity? How I get access to it? One of the key things and that was actually one of the questions that we talked about last week. And I've gotten in so many DMs about equity. What does equity look like? But I'll tell you, equity is basically when your property value goes up in value. Now, everyone gets excited about equity, but let me tell you a secret that most people don't think about. It's great to have equity, but the problem most people have is how do I access it, and then what takes away from my equity. So how do you lose equity? And you can lose equity, and you lose equity by the area that you're in not valid, not taking a total interest in that area and building communities. When you don't commit to your community, start to building a community, your equity can drop, meaning people can go into foreclosure, or that area can go down because of different external forces that happen to that area. People not wanting to buy there, not becoming an admired community because it's not developing and having things that people want to move there for. So your equity can slow down at some point. The another thing that you people get excited about with equity going up that they not sometimes you don't really always calculate in is taxes. So remember this: as your equity goes up every 3 years, that cycle in the South, specifically in Charlotte, the tax cycles every 3 years. So now, as your equity goes up, you may end up paying more taxes based on the value of your home, which causes again your mortgage to go up, and that's outside of interest. Now we talked about the mortgage, and we talked about that mortgage going your mortgage payment, but then inside of your mortgage payment you have principal, then you have the interest, and then the other thing is taxes. So your interest rate might be low, but your tax rate can also change, which causes your mortgage to go up. So yes, Tina, when you start look at your home, you got to think about all those factors. And from the investment side, when you start to look at that as well, it is an investment, and you got to understand now that into to get into the rental side, or get if you decide that you want to live in a home for and put sweat equity in and fix it up. The next step, you decide to rent it, you got to be able to calculate your cash flow to determine how much can you rent that property for, and make sure it's a great opportunity for someone that wants to move in, and have them understand too from a rental side, because we talked about that, is that, hey, look, you may think rents are rising, but there's more. There's the reason why rents are rising are not just because the landlord wants you to pay more rent, because on the backside, Tina now is not only a homeowner, she's an investor. And now Tina has to make sure that she can pay that mortgage, pay those taxes, and also have income on top of it, which is cash flow, to make sure that she can maintain and provide housing for someone at that level. I know that's a whole lot, but Tina, did that answer your question on the investment side and how to access your equity and what equity is? I want to make sure I got that. Plus, about how to as you convert it from a home to investment, some of the things you got to be looking at, the interest and the tax as well, that affects your equity and your mortgage. Did I explain that?
Um,
Don't get nervous over that. Don't get nervous.
Nobody's not nervous.
I think you
I'm
can
half
say
asleep.
it's 6 a.m. morning. You should be wide awake. You just bought a house. You should be thinking about that exit screen and be excited about it. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
So Lisa, did you get some of that though, Lisa? Did that make sense?
Absolutely, I've learned from the best. So yeah.
So again, and people don't normally think about the components that play a part in the mortgage piece of it. And so again, I think the key thing of it is understanding how it all works, and being conscious of all the components that come along with it. Um, so someone said this is exactly why I decided to buy now, and that was a key thing I want to talk about. When you started looking at this, there is no the time to buy is now, and if you're sitting waiting, let me tell you the power of waiting. Waiting is a beautiful thing for people that decide that they're waiting, because two things either happen: either you're operating in fear, or you're operating in faith. The moment you start to wait too long, the world around you starts to change and shift. So the people that waited 5 years ago are now having to pay not 80,000 but now 200 plus thousand. So it's a shift. Now again, just because you may not have been ready then, there's a cost that you're going to pay for waiting. And so if today, if prices are now sitting at the 200,000 range, I know in Charlotte alone, you can't find a house right now. A fixed up home in a great area for under 200,000. Now I'm not saying you can't find one. I've got some ways to find some. But it's hard to find a house around the average price in housing starts around 200,000, and that's not in most cases fixed up. And so when you start looking at that price point, you start saying, "Wow, prices are going up." But here's what I'm gonna tell you: give it another 5 more years, that 200,000 will be 250,000 or 300,000, and and you'll be saying, "Wow, that's expensive now too." But then, what if you have bought today and you paid the higher interest rates, and then interest rates drop? What do? You refinance. So Tina, remember this: you bought your house, you're paying a little higher interest rate, and you bought a higher price point. So there will come a time when the rates go down. You need to be prepared to do a refinance and set yourself up, which drops you down. Again, debt. I really want to have a conversation soon in one of my training sessions about debt and how debt plays a major part and how you capital stack your debt across the board. Because once you start to understand the power of debt and how to leverage it, you also understand how to use it. So, with that said, not going too deep into it because that's a lot of explaining. But when the interest rates drop, make sure you're prepared to refinance, which lowers your mortgage payment because you're going to have a lower interest rate to play against. So that helps you out a whole lot there, and I'm excited about that. So let's see. So when they said this is exactly why I decided to buy my house now. Because again, the longer you wait, the higher those prices are going to go. And again, make sure that what you do is getting a fixed interest rate. So you can that's one thing you can know is be constant. But again, your taxes are going to change every 3 years. So you have that time frame between the 3 years, and if you locked in on your interest rates, you can kind of gauge your expenses and make sure you're doing the right thing with your housing. But that's for equity and getting it ready to do what? Turn it into a rental and become a landlord. So I'm excited about that. Guys, I think this is an amazing conversation when it comes to the segue of ownership. But again, it goes back to what I said earlier. You can only drive a narrative when you're controlling that narrative. You gotta live by someone else's narrative. Everyone can't afford to buy a home now, and I know that. But the mindset of getting in the game and getting around people that's doing it, so you can at least have the experience on what's happening and how it all works. Again, so I'll tell you, Tim. Let me ask you a question. What made you decide to buy on Basement Road, and why now? Like what are they saying? Why now?
Well, it was the home. It was so beautiful. It was built 1961. So it has a mid-century type vibe to it. Um, and I see the development that's happened around Baseford Road. So I definitely want to jump in the game. And also, like you said, like a lot of people can't afford to buy a home, but honestly, my whole process I only paid about 3,000
Wait a
because
minute.
I
Time out.
did the first home buyer.
Hold up. Hold up. Hold
Sorry,
up. So you tell me you got in the house and only paid how much?
3,000, and I got a check back in closing for 230.
Wow. So you bought a house, you were paying, you were renting, you bought a house, and you only paid $3,000, and you got a check back at close. How'd that feel?
It felt amazing. And I feel like a lot of times people are intimidated because they can't put a big down payment on their home. But honestly, you really don't need a big down payment
Wow. I
because I
think
did
I
the
think
first home buyer assistance.
so. But for those who don't understand that first time home buyer, there's some incentives to get you into buying. It's a process, so please don't think it's easy. There's a process, but when you start looking at buying your first home, there you have what's called first time home buyer programs that can give you up to like 15,000. Well, I'll say up to. They can give you a substantial opportunity to get a down payment on your first home. and they also give you some training as well. So again, I tell anybody again, know the rules, find out how those things can help you because again, she just told you how she bought a house and only out of pocket 3,000, and now she's not renting, but now she's also in the game where she can now play in equity versus playing into someone else's equity. She can play in equity versus playing into someone else's equity. And again, renting is, I'm not going to sit and say renting is a bad thing, but if you're renting for over 3 years, let's say on the last call, if you're renting over 3 years, in the 3 year time period, the market, when you come out and you're ready to buy, now it's done this. So the longer you wait, just remember you're going to pay a higher price. So again, um, that's amazing that you were able to buy a house with and get $3,000. Well, have 3,000 out of pocket and got a check back at closing. Hats off to you. That's congrats. And I gotta put that in the chat. Congrats, because that is amazing. And I think people take it for granted that the opportunity is there, and it's amazing. So got another question. Renee is always out there. I'm always excited. Suggest on where the best I and interest rate as they drop. Yes. So one of the key things I'll say is that when you start looking, making sure that again, when the market will change, the Fed always talking about the interest rates they're going to drop. I think they just made an announcement that the rates are going to change again. So again, be prepared. But I'll tell you now, understand this. Every time you refinance, there's a cost to it. So please listen to me closely. Know the rules and get some advice on when to start refinancing. And you want to constantly be talking to your lenders and understand that game. I know that today I'm talking more about the homeowner side and not the investor side, but this is where everyone starts at. So I will tell you, make sure that you are paying attention to the markets, talking to financial advisors, and getting around in circles and just listening to what people are doing and knowing what these cycles look like and when it's time to refinance. Because again, if you refinance when you refinance, you are going to have to pay closing costs again, and those closing costs when you start to pay those, they can add up. So, Lisa, I know didn't you have a few houses back in the day?
What did you say?
Didn't you own a few houses at one point?
No, the guy that I was dating at the time did.
Okay, so I know we had talked about it as far as the landlord piece. You have what's called a settlement statement, and that settlement statement, when you go to close, it tells you all your fees, and those fees can add up. And so again, when you go to refinance, just make sure you understand all your fees because that adds up. And so if just because the rates drop and you just refinance, trying to refinance again creates another adds more cost to that. So just make sure you understand when you're gonna when it's a good time to refinance, and make sure you talk to your financial advisors about what's going on in the markets and when is the best time to refinance. And again, I'm always to answer those good questions because again, I think that's the key thing of understanding when. So how do you keep your eyes on keeping your eye on the market, talking to financial advisors, and listen to what's going on, and being because now when you're in that when you're in the seat of home ownership, you're the one driving the change. It's up to you now to protect your investment and then grow your investment and figure out how to make your investment work for you. So again, that knowing what's all happening and how things are going is key. So I'm excited. That's a great question, and it's again knowing the markets, watching the markets, and being in tune and taking the opportunity to know what your investments look like. I want to change gears just for 1 second and ask the question: how does that how does the interest rate impact me as an investor, long term and short term, when it comes to investments? I think this is a question I'm gonna dive in a little bit around what I've done. Um, it's so hard to type. Um, I apologize. I was typing this down. So when I talk about debt as an investor, and if you've been chiming in on these fireside chats, In episode I think two, we talked about building a portfolio and how interest rates can affect the portfolio because it's all about your debt structuring. And so I began my journey working with properties. I did traditional financing up to a number, and then after I hit, I think it was around 10 properties. The challenge went from doing traditional to now getting into non-traditional money, which is either private money or hard money. And the one thing that it was always constant from beginning to end was that I had to play in the world of finance and leveraging finances. So in doing that, interest was always the biggest factor for me. Now, let me explain this to you because I wanted to be clear. Whether or not you're playing in the wholesale game, the flipping game, the triage game, the rental game from a standpoint of renting properties, and then and same avenue holding properties. Interest rates are something that you always want to pay attention to, but interest rates don't always um, in certain worlds scare me. Why? And I'll tell you, you want to pay attention to interest rate, but you don't want the interest to stop you from moving forward. The reason why, if you told me today that I was buying a house that was 200,000, and I know in 5 years that house based on the markets and going through my class and taking some of these nuggets I dropped in those trainings about location and how to understand what an area is going to how an area is going to change, and you take advantage of the opportunity to buy that house today at 200,000 when you know it's going to be in the 300,000 to 400,000 range in the next 4 to 5 years. So that's a 200,000 jump in equity. And you told me that I'm going to have to pay a higher interest rate to get into the game starting out, but there's an opportunity where there's potential opportunity where that rate may drop, or I may be able to do something different with that home by either selling it or taking a line of credit or using that equity to do something else with it. So why would the interest rate um, make me afraid? It wouldn't. So if you tell me that today I'm buying a house for 200,000, and if I was in a flipping mindset, which some of my mentees are, you buy the house at 200,000 and you're able to at a higher interest rate today, but you're able to sell it for 350,000 in a year or whenever. You've now taken an asset and you've created equity, and now you're able to take advantage of that equity. The interest rate didn't affect you, but the thing about it is that if you hold it long term, do not carry debt long term at a high interest rate. That is, I will tell you, if whatever you do, and now I'm speaking more towards hard money, because I had a large loan, and I carried hard money for a number of years. And my mentor told me in a conversation that, you know what, you can't continue to excel with high risk debt, high interest rate debt. So make sure that you're always looking for opportunities if you're carrying loans, to make sure that you're aware of when is the opportunity to refinance and how to refinance to get out of high rate debt, because that high interest rate affects not only your ability to rent, because I told you, if their mortgage is 700 and interest rates go up and it takes your rate up, now you've got to adjust that rate, adjust your rents to cover that interest. You're passing it down, and at some point, um, which we're seeing now, rental rates are going so high because taxes and insurance at the bottom are changing. And when those two factors change, it causes the mortgage to go up, which causes the amount that as an investor you have to charge on the tax on your rental side to cover those expenses. And if you are a landlord or you're an investor, you understand your objective is the cash flow. And so the cash flow, you've got to charge higher rents. And that's what we're seeing right now. So to answer that question, how interest rates impact investors, they impact investors in your cash flow. And the way you overcome that is now you've got to charge higher rents to cover those expenses. And so so I know people sit and say, well, my rent's going up. Well, inflation's going up, and these factors that we're talking about are impacting. And the way to get around that is you've got to start playing this game. I'm gonna tell anybody out there, an ordinary person will not do extraordinary things, but a person that wants to be extraordinary is willing to do ordinary things plus a little bit something different. If you want to be successful, you've got to do extraordinary things. And the way you beat the game is you've got to play the game. I know a lot of people say this is complicated, and I've talked about buying a home today. I talked about interest rates. We talked about investing. We talked about the impacts of that. We talked about taxes. We talked about a whole lot. But I want you to lean in for a second. Your life has been complicated. You spent almost most people that I've talked to, they went through high school and they went to someone going to college. Not everyone went to college, but going to college. You spent a lot of time educating yourself and preparing yourself for a world that is changing. But I'll tell you, if when you start to become an investor and start looking to take control of your finances and your life, it gets more complicated. And this is the time to start doing that and looking at how to grow things and do things a little bit different. So with that said, again, you can't build a portfolio on high interest rate debt. And we start to look at how um, interest rates impact your bottom dollar as an investor. You end up having to pass that along. To whom much is given, much required. And I'll tell you, please be conscious of how and look at the rates, the rental rates that are rising. It is I've never seen rents this high, but I've also seen see interest the overall interest rates are climbing and seeing the change in the climate because inflation is rising. And I've said inflation a number of times on this call. Inflation is basically the rate that the rate of change in the overall economy and how it's rising. I'm gonna get you an actual definition because I want to be clear on what that is. But we all experience inflation because we're seeing the price of milk and eggs and stuff go up. So you're starting to see the price of everything else goes up along with that. And so, as an investor, you've got to look at how to cut your costs. So, I'm gonna ask a quick question, Renee, Lisa, how are you feeling? And then Tina, how are you feeling this morning? And I'm gonna kind of dive into another question. I'm kind of wrap up because we're reaching our mark.
Well, I'm always honored to be here. I'm always grateful for everything that you share and impart to people. And it's a good day to be a good day, to be an amazing day. So I'm just really, really grateful.
Awesome. So, Tina, tell me how you feeling and how you like this interest conversation around interest rates.
I'm feeling blessed. What was the question about interest rates?
How do you feel about interest rates at this point?
Oh God. um, it is high. It's very high, but like you say, I just have to prepare myself to refinance. So nothing is forever. And as long as you have a plan to, get out of it, then it shouldn't matter.
And so let me play devil advocate. So how do you, so what are you looking for? What are some indicators you're going to pay attention to get out of your high? Well, I'm not saying your interest rate's high, but how do you plan to? What do you plan to do to make sure that you can position yourself later on? See if you,
My credit score.
wow, that's a whole nother question. See, you be bringing up some good things. I want to just I popped on the screen the definition of inflation. Inflation is a rate of increase of in prices over a given period of time. Inflation is typically a broad measure such as the overall increase in prices or the increase in the cost of living in a country. So that's what inflation was. I mentioned the topic. I want to make sure I give you an actual definition for it. Um, and that drives the overall cost that you see on everything around you. But with that said, as you start to see inflation rise, you see things like rent and mortgages and stuff go up as well. So just want to put that out there so we have it. And again, yeah, Morgan, the key thing I'll tell you, Tina, is that you've got to look at ways um, to drive everything and understand what's happening. So pay attention to the markets and know the right time to refinance. And you said one of the biggest things, and I always tell people, credit, cash is king, but credit is queen. On the checkerboard, yes, you can win with cash, but we're playing on a chessboard, and on a chessboard, credit is queen. So protect your credit and make sure that you are driving and you're ready. You're in the driver's seat so that when rates do change, you've got the credit to be able to change along with it. So make sure that you can take advantage of getting a better rate if your credit is good. Because now if you here's a downside: if the rates drop to 3% and you have destroyed your credit by not being responsible, guess what just happened? you're not going to be able to refinance. You're not going to get that better rate. Let that sink in. So everything plays a part, and a part of being in the game and understanding the game is also being responsible. You have to make sure that you're checking, dotting all your I's and crossing all your T's, and understanding what it takes to get to the next level and how things are playing. So with that said, I want to kind of put out there, that's I think that's one of the biggest things is knowing what you need to be doing and the timing. But I will say this and be clear: the time is now to get in the game. I'm happy to see you're in the game. At least I know you're playing in the game, and it's time to kind of continue to make these major moves and jump out there. Guys, it's the 4th of July. I know everybody got plans. I'm excited. Not really. I'm gonna jump on some things today and make some more things happen. I had a consultation this week with a gentleman, and it was amazing. We talked about some tools and tips and tricks, and I was telling him about how to play the game of getting into real estate, but also realizing real estate is a tool. And I think he really got it. So again, if you have not signed up for a consultation, you should hit me on a DM. I'll send you the link. Follow me on Instagram. You get all the access to all the consultation time frames. I can dive deep into these questions and really give you solid answers. Again, I've been in this game for almost 20 years, and someone told me and reminded me to make sure I tell people that this didn't happen overnight. It's been 20 plus years that I've been in real estate. 20 plus years. Let that sink in. 20 years in the game of real estate. So people, oh, well, how'd you get somebody out? Well, again, it's been 20 years, and you may think that, oh, when I first started buying homes, I was buying them at I think 25,000, 20, yeah, 20. I think my lowest house I bought was 21,000, and so you're like, that's cheap. Well, back then it wasn't cheap. Just like today, $200,000 may not sound cheap to everybody, but guess what? It's there. So I think that's a major thing is where you are. Your perspective is based upon where you're sitting at. And back then, my perspective was $21,000 to buy a house was expensive, and now I'm sitting seeing people paying $200,000, and even I'm buying a house at the $150,000 range. You heard that right? I'm just bought one for 150. So they are out there. You gotta know how to find them. I know how to find them. So
Well, Chris, Tina and I are coming over to your house for the cookout.
look, all right, look, come join me. Look, I might be on the lake today though, so we'll see what's gonna happen. I got to get my guys started early today, and then I might be on the lake. So I don't know. Swipe,
We coming to the lake too then.
let's do it. Let's make that happen. So I saw somebody else join as well. I got Champs online. Who just joined? All right, he stayed here for a reason. All right, so look, I know we're wrapping up, but I want let's just say again, this is a great opportunity to do something great, and this is the greatest time that you're ever going to have. And now is the time to make the moves to change your life and then change other people's lives. Because I'm gonna tell you honestly, get into the game of investing is not about you; it's about the people that you're going to bless. Thinking big is just that. Thinking is where you seeing where you are. Dreaming big is when you start to dream bigger and start to look at your life for what it will become. You start living in that mindset of no limits. But being big, as I always said, is not about money. Yes, once you start living big, money will follow you. But being big is truly about being that blessing. So as we start to change your life and start looking at what you want to do next, understand how to be that blessing. Understand that this is the time that God has given us in order to change lives. And I'm excited about what we're doing. I'm excited about these questions. And again, if you have questions and you want them answered, this is all for you. I'm giving my time to make sure that you can be successful. So DM me, hit me up on IG, the Christopher Dennis on IG, and all the platforms. Send me a DM. Tell me what some topics you want to talk about. Tell me how I can help you change your life, because we got a lot of questions that came in that I haven't touched on yet because it's not time yet. We talking about not only we talked about OPM last week. We talked about interest rates this week. Being a landlord, you got everything from how do I buy a portfolio, and then we're gonna start getting into the bigger phase of looking how do I become a developer? How do I transition from residential properties into being a developer, or how do I jump directly into development? What does that take, and what does that look like? So Again, DM me, hit me with these questions, and we'll try and phase them in over time as we develop this process and create a winning mindset for people that want to get into investing, want to understand investing, but also want the truth. Because I'm not here to tell you what I'm not doing. I'm here to tell you what I'm living, have done, and how I'm growing. So I'm excited about where we are, where we're going. Happy 4th of July to everyone. If you're not having a good time today, find somebody who is and celebrate with them. So look, hit me up. I'm excited. I'm gonna drop off. Y'all enjoy your day, and we're gonna kick it. Happy 4th of July.